Hi there, Randi Gren here. A new video. I was talking a little bit about the residing races and the visiting races in the previous video. And the new races are coming in. And then you would say, why haven't we got any information about this? And what about disclosure? And who will tell us this? Will the government rise up and tell that these races are coming in? And what is going on? And all of these kind of things. Why has this information not been given to us? And all these kind of things. Of course, it goes with a kind of directive that was given by the human military. You heard 1,000 times that humans were not ready for this kind of information. And then they set in a program or a process of developing the mammal-human consciousness to be able to process that or conceptualize that level of information. And since it could not be given in the news, and they made very much sure in the 60s and 70s that people who did were actually ridiculed or called psychological cases or pathological insanes and whatever. And we also had the stories of people getting killed and all sorts of weird stuff which the CIA took part of, and all of these kind of things, and Men in Black and all of this weird stuff to kind of repress the information about the visiting races because of the threat that the military thought were coming. And as I said, the more that knows of it, the more you can activate that type of consciousness inside of you. And the military began creating all of these hybrids and inserting all of this DNA, and they had to activate it in a controlled way. And that was part of, there was still the old residing races and their programs going on, but the military didn't really know of this because that was part of what is called the brotherhoods. The brotherhoods took care of the activation from the Nagas and the Ascended Masters, the Sirians, of the mammal vessel. That's part of the esoteric teachings, the Kundalini, the chakra system, and these kind of teachings. And later on into the Keylontic sciences and all of these other Sirian projects that came later on. So these were part of the brotherhoods and the secret information given to people doing this type of work, where they, if you did it right, you will eventually connect to the Ascended Masters and their holograms, and in that beginning getting information on how to develop yourself further, and in that activate the Sirian genetics or whatever they wanted you to activate, typically the Sirians or the Nagas, so they could link stronger up to you, and in that support their own evolutions with energy from this mammal vessel, or if it worked very well, actually take it over. So that's part of the brotherhoods, the understanding that the humans in the knowledge of this always kind of knew. And that goes with the fraternities and the Knights Templar and all of these brotherhoods, the Freemasons to some degree, but that's high level. You have to be a high level master to get this knowledge, and typically they don't really get it because Freemasons today are not that much into the old true information which they were in the 30s and 40s. But since the 50s, because of the planetary hierarchy of the old versions pulled out, which Joel Kuhl talks about, then that level of information left the planet, and that the Ascended Masters of that type actually left, and left behind it for some other Sirians to come in and begin their new type of information, which kind of grew in the 80s and up. So that goes with the Keylontic sciences and these newer types of DNA strand activation sequences. But again, that's hosting, and that's using. The problem with hosting is that the human that begins working with these kind of teachings is that that human typically actually has a soul of its own. But when it links up because of genetic recognition, because it's got inserted Sirian genetics, begins to work with the information from some of these races using the humans. They are kind of the Keylontic and that group of Sirians from Alcyone were actually visiting, but they integrated themselves deep enough to be able to work directly with humans. They had their spokespersons, advocating for this teaching, and all the people that participating in doing the symbols and the energy work, they linked up to the code streams of the Sirians, enabling them to do field intrusion, and in that making them capable of working through the humans and using the human gene structure and holographic energy system to create some of their own strands they needed to create, and they made the humans create them for them, and in that linked up and copied it, and in that did what is called hosting. So, but that's again, some of this were given to the human that did it, and that goes with an agreement that is 20-80. You get 20% when you work with these races, they harvest the other 80. Again, this is the high level type of information, but I'm just saying be very cautious with what type of developmental program you're working with. You need to be very much sure of what race is actually behind, and is this race literally working on your behalf or actually working on their own. And I'm sorry to say, my experience is that very, very few are actually working for humanity, but that's some of the issues that has been going on here, and that's also why the Mammal Human Project, which you see around you, has not really moved very far since the 50s. It's been a lot of technological advancement and material advancement. That's all because of the insect choice and the trade of energy that goes with commerce or normal trade of items in the third dimension. That's exchange of energy, which the insect choice use. But on a psychological level and a spiritual level, humans on this planet have not really gotten to the point, from my perspective, they were supposed to go to, if you look upon all the different programs that's actually been put out there. And I know many of you will have a lot of good explanations why that is. And one of them goes with that the soul is not very highly developed, or it's very young and it hasn't had much reincarnation, all these kind of things. But these are just programs put there to control your belief system of what's actually going on and making you see yourself in a less positive light, giving you the idea that you are lesser devolved than you actually are, and that these are some of the things we need to circumvent and go around, because humans on this planet has now more or less, most humans on this planet, the newer generations for certain, have got all of these alien genetics inserted to them, and humanity today are mainly a hybrid race and has very little to do with the ancient type or the previous type of mammal vessels that existed in the 50s. And when the older generation is gone, that energy will totally leave our reality field, and what is left are humans like you and me from the age of 40 and down that are literally hybrids and have alien genetics inserted into them, and that is some of the things that will determine what type of future evolution we're actually going into. And that means that humans on a broader scale from the age of 40 and down all have the ability to activate these alien genetics in them, and the question is, how do we manage that? And how do we develop that into a new race, a new civilization on this planet that is actually understanding the higher level of consciousness these genetics carry with them. So these are some of the obstacles and challenges we are facing ahead of us. So I kind of got a little bit away from how has this been the whole information level. Well, you have been prepared quite a lot, because they can't bring it in the news. They are beginning to do so, bringing the fifth density, things that are going on in the fifth density code layer of our reality with the lights or the crafts to some degree, but most of the jolts are very, very difficult to see because they are not flying slowly over the sky. They're like this, so, and they are so high, so you can't see them. Sometimes you even just think it's a bird. If you do detect it, you just it's a bird. But if you keep looking at it, you will see it go like this, but you cannot see. You have to do it in down in slow motion. So that's some of the things that are going on up there. So that's not going to be brought in the news, but it has been put into a program. And Hollywood, of course, has been very much part of this. And Hollywood goes with the whole witch staff, I think it is. It's a type of tree that typically goes with the wizard staff or whatever. Sorry, I haven't checked that one up, but it's something like that. Someone's probably got a good theory out there. Just check it out what Hollywood means, and you know what I'm talking about. But the whole idea is that the movies and the producers and the ones that have been working there, some of the ones that are masterly, creating all of these different movies for you, preparing you for other dimensional understanding. And if you look at what's really coming up now, we had the whole fantasy kind of thing going on with the superhumans, indicating that the humans can do so much more and have more abilities, preparing us for the understanding that when it comes, we'll just be kind of, oh yeah, that's just like Thor, or yeah, that's just like Iron Man, or that's just like or whatever. So it's kind of already been incorporated in the collective consciousness. And now they are running very heavily on the incoming of new alien races, not necessarily being malevolent, which we had a lot of in the 80s and 90s, I think. There was a lot of these invasion movies trying to prepare us for that. Sorry about that, but that was part of, and later on, I can't remember what that was, but it was part of the CETA agenda, trying to stir up a high level of anxiety about races coming in, and in that kind of activating some of their negative alien DNA in people. So that's also what the information in movies are being used for. Movies are affecting your mind and your brain, and when it does that, it affects your emotions and your thought forms, and in that, how you process mental and emotional energy. That affects the inserted DNA you have got. And if you look at the movies, for instance, Doctor Strange, it has got so many symbols inserted into it, and symbols are used to control electromagnetic energy. That is great technology. Their crafts are literally run on symbols. You have much of the alien technology are controlled by symbols. If you had the right code sequence of symbols, you can activate or shut down the alien technology. And you have to see these symbols, and then you do it with your mind, your consciousness. You link up to these symbols and shut them down, and in that shut down the technology. You're not using your hands, you're using your consciousness. To be able to shut down machinery, you have to see the codes, and you can only see the codes if you have genetic affiliation with that code stream that goes with that technology. So you have to have the right genetic composition to control alien technology. Some of these movies, even kids' movies, Atlantis, got so many symbols in it, are put there as an experimentation to activate some of the genetic strands in human population, creating a new type of consciousness. And they are succeeding quite well. One of the most revealing movies I've seen so far, I couldn't stand watching Doctor Strange because of all the code symbols, because that was not typically greens, typically insectoids. So that was too much in the magical department of some old type of magic I'm not interested in being activated by. But if you look into, for instance, the movie The Assassin, wow. I think that's actually one of the highest level of information I have gotten so far from any movie. So they're getting very, very close to reveal some of the real type of things that have been going on with humans, and how they can link up and travel back and forth in time, and in that connect consciousness to the past, and in that literally pull the past into the current human vessel, and in that link up to the abilities of that past. That's exactly what I've been talking about, the issue with the dead genetics of the aliens they found in the crafts. So when that begin to activate, we will pull some realities into this one that doesn't belong here. So that's also something we have to take into consideration when we begin the activation of ourselves, is actually what type of genetics are we working with, and are we activating in the correct way, and what do we link up to when we activate? Are we literally pulling in ancient history of races that should remain shut down? and in that literally ensure that we won't recreate the consciousness of these races and literally reactivate them in their code streams and their time pockets, and then pull them into this reality. They're kind of, when nobody remembers a timeline, it kind of goes into stasis, but whatever is kind of shut down there can be revived. And yeah, I do agree with you, that was a very bad strategy of some of the original human races of this system. They just shut it down by forgetting it, by turning the other cheek, forgetting it. But that was because they didn't want to go directly into war, so they used that way of pocketing things in our reality, and that was not a good strategy, and that is coming back biting us in the ass, literally, because what they forgot has now been activated by the military and the CETAs and their programs, and they have used the CETA programs to make their super soldiers go into some of these pockets and participating in the wars there, and in that literally incorporated in the subconscious of some of the super soldiers, which the most prominent one is Max Beers, and how he worked. But there's a lot of Iraq soldiers that have been participating in these wars during nighttime by the insertion of a jinn inside their heart, which pulls them to these realities during nighttime, where they get taken over by their jinn, which is a kind of warrior spirit. And that's also inserted by the use of actually reptilian technology. And the reptilians fight with these human soldiers in these parallel pocketed timelines of the old wars. So that is just a little bit of a surface of some of the things that, when we do the activation of the humans on this planet, that is some of the things that we will have to struggle with. There will be memories of participating in these wars, and humans who are activating will not know, is it here, is it there, is it past, is it present, is it bleed through, what is actually going on. So we got some obstacles and challenges ahead of us as humanity activates and begins to fire up their overlay genetics. So the activation is not about ascension. That is kind of a fairy tale story for the Sirians, making you produce specific type of energy that is high level, high dimensional, so they could host in and replicate what they needed to replicate, and in that pulling it out to save their own system. You could say it's ascension, but you could also say it's waking up to a higher level of understanding of what reality actually is, what alien technology actually is, what a system actually is, what human evolutions actually is, what humanoid evolutions actually are, and what reality truly is. And that is going to take a lot of change in belief system. That's why it has always been within the elite or the brotherhoods or the military factions that the children, the normal human population, were not ready for this. But we have to get ready because of the hybrid programs that's been going on. And there's literally not one child on this planet today who is not part alien. So there are no normal humans anymore. So we will have to face this. And it's not about going out and advocating for this, telling older generations that this is going on, let them be in their normal human belief systems. But this is for the younger ones and the young at heart who are ready to do this work, because you can't be 60 and be one of the first hybrid experiments. So it's not about age per se, but it's a matter of, are you a hybrid? Have you got alien DNA incorporated? And if you have, you will feel the need to work with high level of information. You will feel the need to activate, and you will be less focused on ascension. But of course you can do so if you have a high level of Sirian. That is typically the white Sirians or the light blue Sirians from Alcyone. They are very much into the whole ascension kind of thing, the DNA strand, and then you will work for that agenda, and everything is good and fine. I'm not pointing fingers here, because this is a matter of, we need to learn to collaborate, because we're stuck here together. You see, when 2017 is gone, we're stuck here. and we will have to learn to deal with whatever has been going on here and the programs that the military instigated and has tried to get people to understand. But since these programs have been abandoned, we are now having something else going on, and that is also some of the things we need to investigate. I'm not talking about doomsday and total collapse of monetary system and all of these kind of things, because from my perspective, that is not going to happen. The clans, the colonizers, the aliens that are here, yeah, some of their corporations will collapse because their ancient clan leaders have pulled out. The Rothschilds, for instance, and the Rockefellers and these kind of things, these are all bloodlines. They are pulling out. They had the ability to leave because of whatever magical things they have been doing, tampering around with the human energy system and using reptilian genetics and a lot of weird stuff, because reptilian genetics are life-giving and life-expanding. So that's been part of some of the projects that's been going on there to survive and to revive themselves, and they have managed to do so they can get out. But the others that are stuck here are very, very much interested in continuing making this reality grow. So from my perspective, because I know many of the clans are preparing to go fully into the human vessel, and from that literally begin changing this into a reality that will be able to link up to the fourth density, and in that begin incorporating all of the true alien technology, which we are already seeing happening in all of the gadgets and the iPads and the iPhones and everything that's happening. And while they're integrating this as a part of the human awareness, they are keeping humans mind controlled until the point where they feel it's safe enough to begin revealing what is going on and revealing that they are here and they're actually been here all along, and that humans are actually equally alien as they are. So that's also part of the whole alienation or hybridization, is that when we come to the point where people truly understand this, the fourth density will be so integrated that they will have the alien awareness themselves. And in that there will be no pointing fingers, and there will be no witch hunt for the aliens that are here. And we have to discern between the residing and the visitors and what program they actually belong to. But I'm saying the colonizers here, they have a lot to make up for. And that is some of the issues we are going to figure out how to do so. But it will be much easier the moment they begin integrating themselves into the vessels instead of just hosting them. So that is some of the things we will experience in the future, and that's part of what I'm working with as well. And when I do the template reading, I'm looking at the genetic composition and how to activate this in the best manner. But I'm still being a little bit restricted in it. So I'm working with this as we go along. And that will probably be for 2019 and up until 2025, where the alien consciousness will be much more integrated into this reality. And we will see how that is going to unfold. But I'm participating in revealing that information and preparing you by making these videos. And I am deliberately not touching all of the lesser fortunate sides of this. If you go to my High Awareness channel, you will get that level of information there. This is the nice, soft leading into it, and then you can get the on the High Awareness lifestyle, because there I got some pretty heavy videos going on there, but they are part of the other type of work I've been doing. And let's just say I had my issues with many of these races, but fortunately many of them are leaving, so that opens up to different options and possibilities. And I would rather focus on what we have got now than all of what has been, because that really won't get us anywhere, but just enough so you know what's been going on, so you don't get totally, it's kind of, you don't have into, as we said in Denmark, you don't have to invent the deep plate, so to speak, because or others have already done it. It's already out there. There's a lot of information there from different angles and so forth, and there's been different agendas, and some of them are still harvesting from you. But that's, for me, that's not what this channel is going to be about. This channel is going to be about giving an overview, so you can kind of get into what are you to do with this. How are you to choose to participate in beginning to work with that alien genetics you got inserted? And you can choose to believe that you have, or you can choose to believe that you don't have. And if you believe that you don't have, you can return to your Sirian Ascended Master teachings of love and light and work with your chakra system in the good old way. Penny's drinking water. As I say, she always makes herself known because I'm talking for hours and hours, so of course she is. You can return to that. You can also work with the strands and participate in these Sirian projects where you will get some of it, but as I say, they are hosting quite severely, and I don't fully agree with these races. So if you sense that I'm a little bit hostile, it's because in this work I have had a lot of troubles with the Sirians, and they have trouble in their own system, and they are really creating issues all over the system, and that's why I really don't like them. There are benevolent Sirians out there, but you have to get to very, very ancient races, and not the ones that got agreements of creating the projects down here to solve some of the issues they had in their own system. So yeah, I got my racial issues with some of the aliens, the residing ones, but since most of them are leaving, it's kind of, yeah, that's past, that's history, so no need for me to reveal more of this. For some of you who've been with me for quite some time and you watch the videos of the higher awareness lifestyle and you experience some of with things I've been working with in Australia, you will see in Australia we're still having the difficulties with these races because Australia is kind of very, very interesting place to be, because there's a lot of different races down there. There's a lot of visitors going on down there. There's a lot of different projects going on down there, which are not seen anywhere else in the world. Europe and America and these old continents are mainly controlled by the residing, the ancient souls or aliens. And since most of them are leaving, we are having a bit of a downfall in Europe. Who's going to take over the power? Who's going to control the reality here? And that is some of the issues you're seeing being played out in the third dimension between different factions. And some of them are making pretty heavy statements, using some of their very negative draconian genetics to do so. So that is some of the things that are going to go on in Europe and America, and these are some of the issues we'll face in 18 when some of these negative alien genetics begin to fire up. So these are some of the issues we will have. So this is, from my perspective, why we'll have a little bit of tribulation in from now on and into 18. But I also know that there are incoming alien races that have technology to control that, and they are already beginning to insert it into humans to control these. And I do not agree with that way of handling things, because it's literally like having a factory, and then the owner decides to sell it, and he sells it to a buyer. And that buyer goes in and looks at the factory workers and look at them and think, no, I want to drive this, I want to run this factory in a different way. But I don't really want to take the time to educate them and take the whole human resource development process, education, teaching them how to work with the new machines and all this kind of things. Way too much work. No, easier just go in and mind control them and upgrade them by technology, and then they will be able to work with the new system I want to work with. That is how some of the races that are coming in are viewing humans and what's going on here. So that is happening behind the scenes. The scenes, and that is mainly happening in Europe as well. It will eventually in America, probably, I don't know. It's happening in Europe, let me just put it that way. And I've seen it in Australia as well. Actually, I don't know much what's going on in America, and the reason why I'm not looking in is because of the Baal bloodline that is now in control over there, and because of that I'm really not looking in, because that Baal faction, which goes with the Nazis, which goes with Hitler, which goes with that bloodline, goes back to Mesopotamia, and they are heavily invested in some serious type of old magic that goes back to Mesopotamia. And that type of old magic opens up to some very heavy pockets. We have done our very best to shut down, but they are trying very hard to reopen these. So therefore I'm not giving it energy, because if I begin to looking at that, because I remember that level of Mesopotamia and that type of genetics, if I begin looking there, I will actually give it energy, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I'm not talking about America. I'm literally turning the other cheek, so I won't see it, I won't give it energy, I won't remember it. So that's a deliberate choice. I'm literally protecting myself from not opening up to these genetics and code streams, because I got them inside of me, because my soul goes back to Mesopotamia as well. So let's just put it that way, that we have to be very careful when we talk about activation and the using of mind and of consciousness, and that is why these teachings and this information always have been given in secret societies. And since these secret societies are not longer here, and we are facing this on a global level, I don't think it's prudent or a good idea just to keep it for the few. The very heavy level of it is, of course, for the few I'm working with. I can't give you the in-depth information about this, but I can reveal things on a level that will help you in your normal everyday life and the beginning of this work. And that is what I want to do with these videos. I'm not giving this to activate you, not at all, because that's a very difficult and long process. But I am trying very hard to prepare you for some openings of your consciousness and your mind that will probably begin to take place within this year or next year or whenever. And with that can come things that it's good to have a little bit of knowledge about. So it's kind of saying, this is the time where we begin shifting our perspective on a global level of what a human is, what a planet is, what terrestrial civilizations are, what the future leads into, how we see ourselves in the future, and what we want to do with that future. So, but as I say, let's see where these videos will take me. It's a process. I'm just working my way through it. I have not made a manuscript or a kind of this is what I want to talk about, only the headline. And then I just, as usual, let things unfold as they are with the information that needs to be given in that context. And the purpose of them are, of course, to give you awareness of what's, from my perspective, is going on. And again, you have to remember, I'm a very old soul. I go very far back. And I therefore talk for the residing races, which have typically only been known about by the brotherhoods, the secret societies, and the bloodlines. So, but since most of these races are gone and there is no protection put there anymore, and since humanity are literally being, not by their own free will, but by the military projects, been pushed into that reality and been pushed into a forced evolution, then we have to face these consequences of the choices that other humans made on the behalf of the majority of humanity. Okay, thank you for now.